because attention had become focused on price stability, financial stability went out the door. It was widely believed by leading monetary economists that all you needed was price stability. Everything else flowed from that. Now, if you had just a little bit of knowledge of the 19th century, you would have said, well, hang on a minute. The 19th century, prices are effectively flat for close to 100 years, 1815, 1914, in British experience. And yet, we had financial crises every 10 years or so. Quite serious financial crisis. So they don't exactly go together. Why is that? And that's one of the questions that we tackle. We first of all say, though, what is a financial crisis? And we adopt Anna Schwartz's definition, where the focus is all on the payments system. So it's the banks are always involved, of course, but any threat to the payment system leads to a collapse in the money stock, and that is followed by recession, depression. How can that be avoided? Well, this is associated with the next bit of my story, the central banks. It can be avoided. I think there are three parts to it, or there's certainly three parts in the British experience. The banks find their own way to a stable balance sheet. They learn prudence. If they fail, they go under. Nobody's there to bail them out. There were 500 banks in England in 1815. There were about 50 a century later, and half a dozen or so dominated within that group. So 450 disappeared in the course of the century. Partly that was failure. Partly it was being on the edge of failure and being taken over by another bank who saw some prospects and so on, and the miscellaneous other explanations for mergers. So prudent banking system, and that meant keeping appropriate liquidity on your balance sheet. The second part was deregulation. The English banking system had been heavily regulated up until about 1820, and it then gradually became deregulated over the next 40 or 50 years. And the third element in the story is the learning by the central bank of how it should behave in a crisis. And that was a very gradual process, moving towards the lender of last resort role. Now, Henry Thornton in 1802 had outlined what that should be quite precisely. Thomas Joplin in 1825, when there was the first big financial crisis of capitalism, wrote to the bank and told them what they should be doing. And then Bagehot comes along in 1848. He's only 21 years old at the time, but he sets out the same story as to how a financial crisis should be dealt with. He was born, incidentally, too late to help with the 1825 crisis. He was born in February 26. But he was born in Bagehot and Stuckey's bank, and who knows what he might have acquired by way of osmosis of some kind. So all of these elements were in place about 1870, and lo and behold, we have financial stability uninterrupted until the 1970s. There were no financial crises between 1870 and 1974 in England, and I'll be ready for a question, I'm sure, afterwards on that subject. But by our definition, Schwartz's definition, no financial crises. Unfortunately, lessons get forgotten, and they got forgotten again, and financial crises started to reappear. In the 1970s, 1980s, small bank crisis in the 1990s, and the big one in 2007-9. So all of that kind of reminds us, I think, that we should be directing some more attention to our monetary experience over a longer run.